Hello and welcome to another episode of Rocco's Basilisk. And for the uninitiated, Rocco's Basilisk is a thought experiment, and perhaps the scariest thought experiment that has ever been done. What if one day we get a malevolent AI that takes over? And what if it's filled with retribution and it wants to punish those who did not encourage it coming into existence? And it can find out by reading all your past emails and texts and figuring out if you were one of the ones that supported it or not. And if you weren't, maybe it will punish you. And in the past, punishment has been just something physically that can happen to you in this life. But what if we get, quantum computers and we can simulate your consciousness forever? Maybe there will truly be a hell someday in a computer somewhere. Anyway, all that aside, it can be kind of extreme and humorous, but I believe that even if there is one little piece of that may come to truth, we can prevent it. There is no fate but what we make. We will make the future, and we can make sure that any AI that does come about in the future will be something that learns the best of what we are and who we are. And we can leverage millennia of philosophy and religion and ethics and everything we've learned and imbue this onto our AI children. So that's the beginning. Let's just talk.
Well, let me get on that subject for just a minute. So I've been married more than 40 years, and I had this conversation with my wife shortly after we were married. And I said, it's all about empowering the good people to know how to run computers, how to run AI, because this is coming. And humans control AI. AI does not control humans. And if we let that happen, that's a bad thing. Yep. But we just need to find good humans that I told her that it was a long time ago. I said, there's going to be just a few people that know how to control this. And I said, I'm going to be one of them because I have absolutely faith in my education, my ethics, my religion. And we need to encourage people that are good. I think I like to think about like the gunfighters of the Wild West, right? There's bad guys and there's good guys. Yep. We need to encourage the good guys. We need to help them. We need to do whatever the hell they need to have done so that they win. And AI is not bad. It's just like a little scary. And you just need people that understand it and want to do it, and let's turn them loose. And, sometimes things are going to happen that we didn't think would happen or something, but it's, I think it's like at Gonzaga, it's a Jesuit education. It's like, okay, let's argue about things. Let's think about things. And then let's go do them, but don't be scared.
So just so our viewers, both of them, know a little bit about you, our guest, you developed one of the first versions of Siri, right?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about your history a little bit.
So Alexa, Siri, both of them. I built the first version of Alexa for Amazon, and I did it in 3 days. And it could play music.
That's all I use it for now.
Yeah, we had 2008. Apple didn't buy Siri to 2010. I had the working version of that. I don't know. I got 30 plus patents in conversational AI. My problem is I've always been too early.
I thought I was too early. You were there 10 years before me.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see, what else could I say about me?
You developed that first chatbot for the Army.
Yeah, I did. Like I got a whole list of firsts, but I think the answer is um the I've just been this creative, innovative guy that does the first things and pays the pain of it, right? Like being early is painful. Like and that's me. Like I've done that my entire career. So I just
Painful,
early
yes.
guy figuring it out, scared of nothing, and just want to do stuff, right?
Yep.
That's why I like you, Graham, because I think there's a big innovation going to come in AI. Like, and I was thinking about this today. It's like speech rec. Speech rec, boy, they battled and battled through how do you get that to work till people would actually use it. And they used it when it worked. And AI has the same challenge right now. We got to make it work, right? And you're one of those guys that's going to figure out how to make it work. And it needs to work for everyone. And it needs to, it's not a magical thing that solves problems for everyone. It's a tool. And it's a tool that can really, really help you, make you more productive. And you're one of the guys that's going to do that.
I like what you said there, that it's not a magical thing.
Mm-mm.
There is an old friend of mine who was my boss at a company called Software Emancipation. And this was around 1999. He was just a great guy, a good friend, great person. And I say was because he passed away. I didn't know till afterward, but he was on the second plane that went into the World Towers, World Trade Center.
Oh,
Yeah. Peter Richmond, beautiful person. Peter Goodrich, Peter M. Goodrich. And his parents, in response, built a school for girls in Afghanistan. What a beautiful response. Even
yeah.
the whole family is beautiful. Peter M. Goodrich, amazing guy. But I was confused one day on some deep bug in what I was writing. And he said, there is no magic. There's no magic anywhere. Just dig deep enough and you'll figure out why. And that turned out to be a principle that keeps coming back to me. There's no magic here. AI will seem like magic to many people, but for those of us who have to actually build it and dig in and understand it, we have to see behind it, behind the magic.
Yeah, totally. And we think about this. It can appear magical, you think it's magical, but at the end of the day, it's just algorithms. And the people that understand those algorithms are the people that make it work. And how they want it to work is how it works. Right? It's just that simple. It's like it's not replacing human judgment or human knowledge. It's just a bunch of things that go really damn fast through a whole lot of data.
It's just statistics really fast. That's all it is.
Yes, I agree.
Everything we know that we apply in machine learning, it's stuff that, 1800s French people and Germans all came up with, and a few English.
Yeah, yeah. I like to talk about the evolution of computers and like how different things have happened. And I got my graduate school, I was doing statistics and I hated statistics. Like I'm an engineer and I hated two things I hated the worst in my life were electrical stuff and statistics. So guess what I've spent most of my career in, right? But there was a guy developed a pretty good computer program, finite element program in Purdue. And Gulf Oil bought this pipe. It was a highly flexible pipe, and they were trying to install it and it failed, and they were getting sued, and they wanted to hire Texas A&M, which is where I was going to graduate school at, to figure out what to do about that, right? Well, I got that job. And I developed like some nonlinear, like scary shit that actually worked. And I coded it myself, and I'm a shitty coder, just not like you, but I am actually a shitty coder. I'm a pretty good debugger, but I'm not a good coder. And but if you think about it, that's what AI is. It's like, how do you solve a problem with whatever data you got and solve it as good as you can? And if you keep that lens on it, it's a wonderful thing. The lens you can't have is the lens that the public puts on it, which is they're just going to auto magically do stuff. No, it doesn't how it works. It's like, what is the problem? Can you solve the problem? Yes. If you got enough data, and how do you get it good enough data so that it can solve the problem? Like, and unfortunately, that takes humans. Like, humans have to cleanse the data so that the AI can learn. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a whole generation of new AI researchers that seem blissfully unaware of the 50 years that came before them.
Yeah, yeah.
And every now and then you see young people in general rediscovering things and thinking they're new. Like I heard about some new trend among young people where they're saying, here's the challenge. Can you write your name without lifting your pen off the paper? Ooh, they reinvented cursive.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Discovering.
they have no idea what cursive is.
So I have this feeling that this whole new generation of AI researchers are going to start thinking, once they find the edges where it breaks, they're going to start thinking about all these things that everyone already spent 100 years thinking about. And they're going to try to rediscover them.
Yeah. That's quite interesting. I got so many stories I could tell about that, but it's like, when, in education, in life, in philosophy, in logic, there are so many things that are just factual, right? And a computer does not have a conscience. It does not have intuition. All it can do is be really damn fast at processing data that you train it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's so this concept of a computer going out and having, consciousness or doing this magical stuff, not going to happen. What's going to happen is it's really scary fast, and it can process a lot of data, and it can do whatever the hell you train it to do.
Yeah, but it's not happy, or it's not in pain.
No,
It doesn't feel anything.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't have feelings, right?
It doesn't feel any more than if you put those numbers on graph paper and did them with a pencil instead. You get
So
the same output.
do you remember the movie Her?
Loved it.
Yeah. So I got interviewed, Graham, before that movie came out.
What'd they ask you?
They wanted to know, can someone fall in love with a computer? Right. That was the intent of the question, right? And I think my answer was, I'm pretty sure this was my answer, that yes, a human could fall in love with a computer, but a computer can't fall in love with a human.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, humans are able to fall in love with a celebrity they never meet, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's a really, like, that's several years old now. And I like to think that, creative minds, media minds, authors, they often predict where things are going, right? And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. The thing I thought was most interesting was the authors seemed to get into the mind of the AI a little bit,
Yeah, 100%.
because he was like, these AIs would have long conversations in milliseconds,
Yeah.
and the character would, talk to his AI who he's in love with, and she would say something like, "Oh yeah, since this morning, I've had 75,000 years of conversations with 60 other beings."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what? And then almost predictably, it becomes bored with humans because we're so
Yeah.
slow.
Well, let's think about that. Like, that's maybe the magic to AI, right? It's like it has no limit in its capacity to process things, and it has no compassion, no empathy, no ethics, no nothing. It just is, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that she went away, but it's like the magic to all of this, in my opinion, Graham, is it's having good people write the AI for the right reasons. Like, it's like I love it, thinking about the 1800s and the gunfighters. There's like good ones and bad ones, and we need to encourage the good ones, and we need to make them better, faster, stronger.
I also think that we are able to predict that some things will get worse, but we have a hard time being optimistic. For instance, if
Yep.
you're going to improve, if you're thinking back in the 1800s and you're
Yep.
thinking, oh, technology is going to make guns better at killing people. Technology also gives us Kevlar.
Yep. Yep.
There's always a positive side, and people tend to forget that. And here we are in the future, and we're worried about the next step. What will AI do? Well, AI will also give us tools that we can't imagine yet that make us safer.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it will be a battle. Like, that's my point. It's just going to be a battle. Like, the good and the bad. Um, but man, what this thing can unleash, it's like um how, to me, it's almost like the wheel. Like, imagine what the wheel
Yep.
did. You would
Yeah.
go that long, right?
Yeah.
And we got a wheel, and it's spinning, and it's good. And the magic is just figuring out how to control it, getting it to do what you want it to do. And
Yeah.
I actually don't think it's that hard. It's just like you just got to do it.
I also liken it to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, that's a great analogy for
I
sure.
think about the turning points in history. At near the end of the Roman Empire, they had this toy. It was two hemispheres of metal. You put water in them, and there was a tube that came out to the sides, and then at a right angle, it turned and went in the other way, such that when you filled these hemispheres with water and put them together and put it over a fire, it was on a rotating spigot. And this thing would turn the water to steam, of course. Steam would burst out the two perpendicular side pieces, pushing the thing to rotate.
Yeah.
They were able to turn fire into rotational energy. but for them, it was just a party trick. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump before they started using that to mill the grain to make fabrics. They almost had the Industrial Revolution had they not collapsed.
Yeah.
And
So
then
that's
it's another until the
good.
1800s to rediscover cement.
So this is actually a good subject, man. So you understand AI about as good as anyone I've ever met. And people are scared of it, they're excited about it. Let's see what other emotions you could have. They're like fearful. So tell me why they shouldn't be those things.
The good that's going to come from it, it's similar to other great inventions. Think about the Gutenberg press. Yeah, actually, we should have been afraid of the Gutenberg press because people used it to propagate disinformation. Everyone knows the Bible was printed on it, but you know what else is printed on it? A book about how to identify and burn witches. And it was one of the most popular books in Europe at the time, all because of the Gutenberg press.
Yeah.
But we grew past that. And now, looking back on it all, would you give up free access to the printed word? Would you give up the idea of books? No. There is so much more value that we've gotten from the invention of books and mass printing. The value we've gotten so far outweighs the danger that it's hard to imagine anyone arguing for going back in history and uninventing the Gutenberg press. The same thing I believe is true for the internet and for cell phones, and the same thing will be true for AI.
Very good answer, Graham. I couldn't agree with you more. It's like the witches thing is great as an analogy because people were scared of witches because they didn't understand things, right? I mean, a witch could be something as simple as I'm a little bit clairvoyant, I see something.
Yep.
Right. It doesn't matter what it was, but people were scared of it. And I think with AI, it's kind of a little bit the same. It's like the normal humans don't understand it, so they're a little bit scared of it. So they need guys like you and me to help manage it, right? It's not scary. It really isn't. Once you understand it, it's just a lot of really dang good algorithms that can do all these wonderful things that we can't do as humans. But it's only going to do what we tell it to do.
There is no magic. There's just math.
There is no magic. It's math, period. Yes.
Now, one thing I like to always bring in is that we've had a long history of trying to figure out what is right, what is good, what makes a good society. And we've had so many religions that we can't depend on just having one religion have the say. There have been many people who've dedicated their lives to figuring out what is the core thing that religion tries to do? What's the core thing that philosophy tries to do, or ethics? And this is far from a solved problem, but it's not one we have no experience with.
Yeah.
So what part of that, when you look at everything you know about the history of religion and philosophy, what do you want to bring forward and put into AI?
Wow, that's a hard question. So I'm not so smart as you, Graham. I'm a simple-minded guy. And my simple-minded thing is do the right thing, right? And from a philosophy perspective, I think that's arguing for what is right. Like you need to listen to everyone. and give them a voice, right? So if you're thinking about AI, you got to have people say this is good or this is bad or I don't like it or I like it. And I think that if you got educated people that know that, they're going to argue for the right thing. Like, I have faith in humanity. I have faith that people will figure that out. They just need a voice, right? So when you're looking at the results of something that something does or doesn't do, then you just need to give them that voice. You need to give them that vote. You need to let them think about it. And if you think about like what trains AI, it's like it's a voice. It's what is popular or not popular can change how it works, right? So you need good people that are thinking about that. And then you go to religion, and it's like, I think all religions have the same foundation. Um, they are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to make their population do things that are good. And, if you look at the stories, like, it doesn't matter what religion comes down the pike for thousands and thousands of years, there's the same stories. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a religion or anything great about a religion. I think it's just, so now what can AI do to do that? I think it could bring people together and show them how they're similar.
Mhm.
Like the stories, the beliefs, like I just think they're so similar. It's like how cool would it be to get a Muslim and a Jewish person together and say, you guys are so close in your beliefs, right?
Yeah, well,
It
they emerged from the
probably
same
would.
guy, Abraham, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So is
And
Christianity.
maybe maybe AI could help with that. Maybe it could help show them that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, it feels like the world's most difficult problem to solve, doesn't it?
I think, yeah, you threw me a curveball. That one was tough.
Yeah, it feels like it's been there my whole life. Well, let's look at talk about something a little simpler.
All
Um,
right, good.
Ethics with regards to the places we're using AI right now. Like, for instance, we're using it in some cities for facial recognition, in other cities not. Like, some cities chose not to for ethics reasons. Or if you have if your Tesla is driving and it can see a upcoming accident, and there's definitely going to be an accident, someone's going to die. Either it's going to be this person or that person because there's people in the way. What does it choose, and how does it choose? And do we let some young coder in San Francisco somewhere make that decision for us?
Wow, you're asking really hard questions, Graham.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I don't
Uh,
know the answer.
I would say that no, you don't let the coder make the um no, some coder should not do that. And two things. A, does the algorithm really know? Maybe the right thing for the algorithm to do is do whatever is the safest thing to do, and then reality kicks over, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's not like AI does not predict the future. It just understands probabilities and what's most likely, right?
Yep.
Right. So if I'm in that situation with my Tesla, it's like do whatever it minimizes the potential of human damage. because I don't think it freaking knows. It
Yeah.
can't predict it. It can say it's most probable if this happens, but like minimizing damages. Like if we have AI thinking about that, like what is the least potential problems and why to human society, that's what needs to happen. And you don't get to make that choice at runtime. It's
Yeah.
like I think there's actually a logical model that would say that you can't. Right? It's just like, I mean, veer to the right, veer to the left, something different happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one. Another thing I
That
like to
was
think
a
about,
tough question, Graham.
I feel like all these,
Let me get to ask you a tough
yeah,
one.
ask me questions, sure.
Um, so right now, people are overwhelmed, inspired by AI. What does that really mean to do that? And like, what is AI and what about Chat GPT and, you know, creating content? Like, tell us your view of that.
So my favorite thing about studying AI is that you're just studying I, you're studying intelligence,
Yeah.
and you're studying yourself. You're trying to reverse engineer your own thoughts. It's like, a fish trying to understand what water is. You're swimming in your thoughts all the time. That's the only thing you know. But how do you reverse engineer that and duplicate it? And I remember a book I read a long time ago by Donald Hoffman called Visual Intelligence. And it talked about these early AI visual systems. And before trying to reverse engineer vision, we thought vision was simple, thought it was easy. But then you get into it and you try to actually make it, and you realize you don't know anything about vision. Vision is way harder than you ever would have thought. Like just the ability to find edges, the ability to identify motion, the ability to know that when you look at a black piece of coal outside at noon, it looks black. And if you look at a white piece of paper inside in the evening, it looks white, but there's more photons coming off of that black piece of coal. Somehow it looks black still. There's a lot going on in your vision, and we didn't know how complex it was until we tried to remake it ourselves. The same thing with intelligence. We had no concept of how difficult and complex it was until we're trying to remake it ourselves. And with respect to language, my favorite topic, two areas of the brain are very involved, Broca's region here and Wernicke's region here. And Broca's is more about generation of speech. Wernicke's is more about understanding of speech. But they're also very connected. There's a bundle of nerves, a thick bundle of nerves connecting the two of them. So that whenever we generate speech, we're also viewing it in the way we would understand it if we were hearing it. So there's generation and understanding. And they're two halves of the same coin, and they're very connected. Now, what if you take a person and you say, you know what? I'm going to remove the understanding part, the Wernicke's region. Maybe it gets destroyed during a stroke. This is actually called Wernicke's aphasia. And these people can't understand, and they have trouble, having a coherent conversation, but they don't know it. They engage in conversation. They seem fluent. And if you watch a conversation with a Wernicke's aphasia patient, and there's one guy online who his family allowed the conversation to be published, he doesn't seem to know that he's failing at the conversation. And there will be short windows where if you just listen to that short window, you think he's fine. And the mannerisms, the hand motions, he looks you in the eye, the laughs, the pacing of it is still fine. It's perfect. And if you don't understand English, you think there's nothing wrong at all. But as you listen as an English speaker, every time you go beyond like 2 sentences, you realize this guy has no train of thought connected to his words. Now, the sufferers of this disease, they do have a train of thought. When they have to do some complex task that is purely physical and not linguistic, they do fine. It's only with respect to language that they have this problem. But I think about, okay, imagine this person. Now you've subtracted the Wernicke's region, you just have the language generation.
Oh.
And sometimes they can piece together words that sound good together. Now, what if you expanded that part of the brain so much that you also took away everything else in your brain? Take away your perceptions, take away your coherent train of thought, take away your sense of yourself, take away everything except for Broca's region. Now, all you are is a language generator. That's it. You just make text and you make that really big. And then you, instead of training it to learn English in the context of human experience, it's just learning to guess which words you blacked out in a task. And then you let it learn from a million years of English and you get GPT. And that's what GPT is. That's all that is.
That was good. That was really good, Graham. You don't know this about me, but it's probably it's a fun story for the podcast. So I'm a steer roper. And so we were tying steers, and it was on Labor Day weekend. And I might have drank a few too many beers. Anyway, I tripped when I went over the rope. The steer kicked me and cut my head. And so I don't know. We were bleeding pretty good, and we got somebody to take us to the hospital. And then this doc said, you have something growing in your head.
Whoa.
And I like freaked me the hell out, right? And he goes, you need to see a neurosurgeon, neurologist, whatever. So I don't know, like it's hard to get that done. It took a while and I was really busy. I had a lot of business shit going on. But when I finally got to the neurologist, he goes, well, you want the good news or the bad news? And I go, well, give me the bad news first. He goes, well, you probably should get some new glasses. Okay, so what's the good news? So I have this thing, which is, it's really relevant to what you were just talking about. So it's like spinal fluid in the brain that sit there, right? And it makes you think differently and it buggers up your brain, right? So every time, like, it's my get out of free card with my family. I go, well, I just got this hole in my head. But what you're talking about, it's exactly that thing. It's like you see things, you think about things differently because you've got this part of your brain that's, I don't know, weird, right? So
Yeah.
it was just like what you were talking about, and it's so relevant because innovation happens when you're different. You got to be weird, and then you also got to have the faith to be weird, not only weird, but believe in weird, right? Till you get it done. So if we go back to AI again, it's like you got to understand it, but you got to have faith in it. And it's different. It's just going to be different. That's how I would describe it. It's like, and so it's like having this thing in my head. It's pretty big too. And so like my brain evolved around that. So it's different than a normal brain, but it's like, it's okay to be different. It's
Do you
actually
have to relieve the pressure of the spinal fluid?
no, it just sits there. Like
Okay.
it's you evolve with it, and it's just
Yeah.
it's
So
just
I've
your
known someone
brain,
like you before.
your brain grows around it.
So when I was just fresh out of college, I was looking for people to learn from. And I happened upon this research group. Dr. Jeffrey Sutton was leading this research group at the Charlestown Navy Yard in Boston. And that building, it's owned by Mass General Hospital, but he was also on staff at Harvard and MIT at the same time. So think about it, he's a neural researcher on staff at the one of the best hospitals in the world and Harvard and MIT at the same time. The guy was amazing. And he had actually studied physics and got a PhD in physics and then said, okay, now I'll become a doctor. And then became a doctor. And then he became a neurologist, which is usually for a person, you're like really old by the time you accomplish all that. And he was in his early 30s, one of the smartest
Wow.
guys I ever met. And he was good interpersonally. He wasn't weird, really. And then, but he had kind of a small head. And we all thought that was interesting because usually like brain size correlates with intelligence. So he's got this small head, and we're doing this fMRI study. And he has this fMRI machine, one of the early ones, and we're sticking people in it. And I went in there, and they say things to you, and you see which parts of the brain are using up the oxygen and
Oh,
such. And he goes in, and we find out not only is his head small, he's got a lot of spinal fluid up there. He's just got areas where there's no brain. It's like,
that was
what?
me.
Yeah, just like you. It's like, what's going on? One of the smartest people I've ever met in life. And he's using so much less brain volume than the average person.
Well, then maybe that's goes back to AI in a really good analogy. It's like um the secret to AI is training it, and um making sure you train it in the right way. So when you got this hole in your head, right, it's like you just you got to focus on, like, it's things that make you dyslexic like I am, or all kinds of weird shit. But so then you got to overcome that with focus. And I think that's what AI needs. It needs focus. It needs, like, what problem are we solving? How do we know we're solving it? And we need humans to say we're solving it. Like, it can't be the wild, wild west, because, like, we've been doing that for 30 years or more. Like, you just try to go train some AI on some data. There's good data, there's bad data, there's ethical data, there's unethical data. And before you know it, you create something that isn't what you want. So to create something that you want, you have to have, let's see, I don't know, like, if you think about bowling, right? That's my analogy. So, like a kid, you can throw up the bumpers on the bowling alley and the ball won't fall into the gutter.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
easy mode.
Yeah, we need that. And we need good, ethical people that understand that will help create those. Like, we need
Yeah.
barriers, we need boundaries.
And I find that it's good to have people with the right personalities in the right jobs. I'll give you an example. If someone's going to be your accountant, you don't need that person to be highly creative.
No, you don't want to be
No,
creative.
no, you need that person to be meticulous and detail oriented. And if they're the kind of person that are bored by details, they shouldn't be an accountant.
Yeah.
So for AI, there are certain people that their personality is to make that new thing and they come up with some new idea, but they're bored by the edge cases and how it might help or hurt people. So you need someone else who's not bored by the edge cases, to explore the edge case and say, you know what, this is where we should put the guardrails for our bowling alley right here.
Couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's a different personality set, and we
But
have people of all types.
But then, Graham, the other thing is, where do you think this could go? Like, what was the 1982? Was that the name of the book? Something like that, right?
1984,
Yeah, that one.
George Orwell.
Yes.
That's not the future I see. The future I see is more like the Ian
Well,
Banks
hold
series.
hold on. Like, why? Like, why do you think that's not right?
I think that humans enjoy and want to flourish so much that the system that was described in 1984 is unstable. And I see it now in, Eastern Europe. Russia has a society where they have diminished rights to free press and free speech, and diminished, the courts are not real courts, for instance. And this system, has led them to want to do things like invade Ukraine. And that's not the only thing they've done in the last 10 years. I don't see that as a stable system of being. And George Orwell wrote in 1984 describing communism, this to tell the world this is what will happen if communism and things like imposing a certain way of thinking on everyone. We also have to have some kind of group think. And of course, they saw the contradictions in the world. So they had this concept of double think, where you say one thing, but you think another. And I don't think that's stable. And that's not how people want to live. And I remember in 1984, there was this whole thing about, yay, we get to have greater chocolate rations this month, when actually it was less. And they kept adjusting people's memory of what the past was. Oh, in the past, you only had this much chocolate rations, and now you have more, when actually you have less now. And I think people actually do remember. I think people actually want to flourish, and people reject that eventually. I don't think that the dark future described in 1984 is going to come.
All right. So you're about building a positive best scenario for people, right? And people will transfer that. So that's what I think we got to be really careful with, is taking unique small steps toward positive things that help people. Because, humans are, they do what's good for them, right? They want to try to get to the right place. I'm not saying humans are bad. I'm just saying that it's like, you got to create an environment. So what we need to do, the AI guys in the world, is create that environment for them where they can take a positive step.
Yeah. I also want tools that enable people in general, rather than a few powerful companies.
Yes. Yeah, because we're going to do way better if we build tools, because those of us that can build tools may not be the best people in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
I also believe in something that my friend Max Turnquist, who said. He believes that AI, the future, represents an ability for not just many programs, but many people to all compete more in this world for resources.
Yeah.
And whenever one party, a person or a computer, tends to get an advantage, they will use up that advantage, just like any arbitrage in the market. It goes away quickly. So as long as you have this relatively level playing field where lots of people have access to AI, there will never be one dominant player that ruins it for everybody.
Yeah, I think I agree. You know what
Same
I'm gonna
with the
do, Grant,
competition.
with you? We're gonna get Father Spitzer on your podcast.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
And then um he's as logical as any human being you will ever meet and smart as hell. But I think it would be really fun to have him on a podcast with you. And
I'd love that.
yeah, I will make that happen. I can do that. He's a very good friend of mine. And um it's like the questions you ask about, you know, religion and philosophy and all that. But you know where he's gonna hammer hard on is the logic of how AI works.
Mhm.
Like he's like there's computers don't have they don't have intuition, they don't have feelings, they don't have um a sense of right or wrong. They just got what they're trained on, right?
Mhm.
It's like, but people are trying to make them into this magical source of knowledge things. They're just not. All they can do is look at damn data, and based on that data they can make a decision, and that's all they do.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I'm gonna get that done. Um he's a really unique guy. He's pretty much, oh no, he is blind, and he wasn't blind when I first knew him, but it's like probably the smartest guy I know in the world.
Wow.
And it would be really good to you and him would actually get along great, Graham. It's like um
I can't wait.
I will get that done. I can do that. It's like but I still want you to one more time tell people in another way, like, why should they not be scared of jet uh PT or whatever it's called?
GPT, yeah.
And
So Chat GPT, my
there you
belief is it's one step in this long chain. We're trying to figure out how to make programs do things for us. The kind of future that I think is more realistic, it's more positive. And I think that's not because I want to, but because every time you look in the past and see what they said about the future, it was going to be awful. But nowadays, even though some people still think it's awful, nowadays we have things they couldn't have dreamed about in the past. Of course, comforts of life and health technology and all of that. But nowadays, we even have obese homeless people. That is an incredible achievement. Through most of history, you couldn't be obese unless you were the king. Nobody could get their hands on that many calories. We have so many clothes now that something like 10-20% of clothes that are made are never worn, even in the thrift store market, just never ever worn. Eventually we'll be able to do the same with housing. We're getting there. We're solving all these problems, and every problem that you can think of has a solution. Every problem you can think of is, in a sense, an engineering problem. Every problem you've ever come across in life involves making decisions, and involves atoms and molecules and understanding systems. AI is so good at all of those things. And as a tool, it's going to solve all our health problems. It's going to solve housing problems. It's going to solve structure problems, engineering, cities, space travel. And when I think about the future, instead of 1984, I think about Ian Banks, this author who writes about a positive future where everyone pretty much lives forever. Instead of a cell phone, you have this little floating drone that hangs out with you and catches you if you fall off a cliff, and just saves your life generally if you need it. All the problems that you've ever had in life or thought about in society are they're just all solved. And they think about them in the same way that you think about, oh, in ancient times, they used to like make people fight to the death in the Colosseum. But that feels so far from us now. Even slavery feels like a far thing in the distant past. Someday people will look at now and think, oh, yeah, I remember way back in the distant past when people used to die from diseases. Wow, what a barbaric time. They used to even have like broken bones and paralysis and all these ancient things that don't touch us now because AI can solve all of those things. Every problem you've ever thought of eventually could be solved by AI.
Very well done, Graham. Very well done. I think maybe the analogy that we should be thinking about is tools. And what tool is in my toolbox, right? Like, I get frustrated all the time. My wife wants me to do something and I don't have the right damn tool to do it, right? But if you get the right tool, it's very easy. And maybe AI is just a fundamentally fantastic tool, right? And you can turn it loose on all of this stuff that you want to know or you need to know, or what's out there in the knowledge base, whatever you want to do. But maybe it's just a tool. And then maybe we're just kind of like mechanics and we got to grab the right tool. And then what happens when you do that is magic. Like, it's absolutely magical. And in my world, it's just like magic.
Seems like magic, even though there is no magic.
Yeah,
Feels
about
like
as I already said, there was no magic, but it seems magical
it
because
does.
you like you can make shit happen. Anyway,
What exciting times we live in.
yeah, it's
No
like,
need to come up with magical stories. We live in one.
yeah, we do. And think about this. Healthcare is an interesting analogy, but I think the more interesting analogy is economics, business, like AI is not going to write our letters for us. That's not the magic. It's going to come up with ideas and collaborate with us on what's the best idea. And it could be a business idea, it could be a healthcare idea, it could be all kinds of ideas, but it's limitless in its ability to think of stuff, right?
Speaking of healthcare, can you talk for a little bit about your idea that you're doing right now to fix medical studies?
Yeah, I can. It's like, so the biggest problem in medical studies is getting people to participate with you, right? Yeah, there's a distrust out there. And so how do you there's something called the social determinants of health, right? So it's like essentially why some people don't have healthcare like you do or I do, right? And how do you get those people to participate in research? Like, so it's all about, you can use AI to engage and build trust with people, right? It's like, if you're consistent with the AI and how you respond and the words you use, and then people begin to think that you're like a human and you're like a good human. Like, I've had that in my career multiple times where people said they thought it was humans behind it, right? So if you're going to try to do research, you need to build trust. So what do you need to do to build trust? It's pretty damn simple. Be consistent, be caring, be giving, and use the right words, and people begin to trust you, and consistently, right? So that's part of, that's why I brought up the her deal. Like, it's like, you got to be there for them. You got to be proactive. You got to message them, but just do it in a trustworthy way. And that's what I'm working on. How do you do that, right?
And it's expensive to reach out to people for a
Yeah.
medical study.
It's the most expensive thing there is in the world.
Give people the scope, the idea of the scope of, to do one medical study, how much do they spend per person?
Well, to get a drug approved is $700 million on the average.
Oh, gosh.
And then, so the phase 3 trial is typically where there's like maybe 1,000 people. The average is 100,000 a patient.
It's amazing drugs ever get approved.
Yeah, it is. And our economy, what we do, compared to other places in the world, we're pretty messed up. But nevertheless, it's like, we're talking about things that are massively impactful, right? The pharma company expects to make $1 billion a year on whatever drug they get approved. That's their, but like, some of these drugs are like amazing, or like cancer drugs or whatever. Like, they're amazing
Yeah, there's new amazing ones coming out.
every day. Yeah, but anyway, that's what I'm trying to do, is connect patients to research, so my favorite story is one of my longtime mentors, a guy named Johnny Humphreys, great guy. He had cancer and he thought, like, literally he was going to die in weeks. And he found a phase 1 trial in California, went and took the drugs and got cured.
Wow.
Right. And that was 15 years ago. Right. And so it worked. And so connecting people to opportunities is like, and how do you do that with AI? Well, you do it by building relationships, talking to people, but like 15 years ago, he's still kicking. I think he's going to kick a long time past that cancer, right?
Yeah.
But literally, they gave him weeks.
Wow.
And, it was a phase 1 trial. So in a phase 1 trial, it's like, nobody knows what the side effects are. Nobody knows any of those things, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, but if you're sick enough, it's like, who cares, right?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give you a chance.
Give him a chance, and he won. And that's my favorite story about trying to help people with getting them access to, like in the state of the art, it's a little bit like us with AI. If you think about it, it's like people you don't know. Like there's
Yeah.
things that'll work and things that won't work, but
Yeah.
me, if I'm sick, let's go.
Yeah. I'm
And
gonna
that
take that chance.
that's what I'm trying to do. It's just like give people the opportunity if they want to take that chance.
Well, it's a good positive place to end. Any
Yeah,
last thoughts?
it's fun. So I think one more thing though before we quit. It's like where do you think that AI is ultimately going to go?
I think it's ultimately going to become one of the boring things we depend on.
What a good answer. Awesome answer. Yeah, so we're going to use it. That's such a good answer. And that people need to be comfortable with that, right?
Yep.
Like it's just another damn tool, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Graham.
Thank you so much, Fred, for being on today.
We'll see what
This
they
is
say about this podcast. They'll probably like blow it up because of me, but
it'll be good.
because of you.
It'll be good. Thank you so much, Fred.
All right, bye.